Hare Krishna. Here in New Zealand, it's almost dusk. The time and the day for the appearance of Lord Nrsingadev. Sri Nrsinga, Jai Nrsinga, Jai Jai Nrsinga. Prahlada Desha, Jaya Padma, Mukha Padma Bringa. In glorifying Lord Nrsingadev, first we should understand that Hiranyakashipu is not such a bizarre character as we might think. He is the epitome, the reservoir of material desire and materialistic life. That means we can see some of ourselves in Hiranyakashipu. He had the tapa, the austerity, the yoga, the mystic power, the bala, the physical strength, and the ojas, the sensual strength, to act on all his desires in such an extraordinary way. He had power over all the directions, as we discussed Monday. He had every opportunity to indulge his senses to the utmost. He was everything that a materialistic society would want. He had it all. Yet, still he was dissatisfied. We made this point on Monday. He's teaching you and me a lesson. That whether you are a big cosmic exploiter like Hiranyakashipu or tiny exploiters like us, you cannot be satisfied through material endeavor. So the question is, how many lifetimes will it take for us to accept that reality? We're always living in denial. Oh, it can't be true. Or else we're living in dissonance, some kind of disconnect in which, yes, I know that statement is true, but we sort of bifurcate our reality. We have the Shastra statements, which are all true, of course. And then we have down here on the ground reality where, look, I want to feel satisfied. I want to achieve my desires, at least some of them. The more that we look at Hiranyakashipu as a mirror to ourselves, then the message starts to sink in more deeply. What became so extreme with Hiranyakashipu, besides his attachment for sense gratification, what was so extreme was his enmity, his desire to avenge the death of his younger brother Hiranyaksha. He had vowed, if I ever get a hold of Vishnu, I will slay him and drink his blood. Let's consider the moment of truth. So many of our devotees love that moment when Hiranyakashipu challenges Prahlad. Yastvaya manda bhagyokto mad anyo jagat ishvara kvasa yadi sasarvatra kasmat stambe nadrisyate. That's from the 8th chapter of the 7th canto, text 12. Oh, most unfortunate Prahlad, you have always described a supreme being other than me, a supreme being who is above everything, who is the controller of everyone, and who is all pervading. But where is he? If he is everywhere, then why is he not present before me in this pillar? In other words, my sense perception is the reality. You're talking about a supreme being, but the plain fact is the supreme being is nowhere to be seen. I don't see any trace of a supreme being. That's the proof. It's amazing how, without humility, we become so proud of our sensory perception as the true indicator of reality, as the true verifier of reality. So in this powerful statement by the super powerful Hiranyakashipu, you feel the conviction in material sensory prowess. Prahlad, I've got senses, not only for enjoyment and indulgence, but I've got senses for perception, for knowledge. Therefore, how can you talk to me about a supreme being when we all know? There's no such reality because at least I can't see it. And if I can't see it, that means it doesn't exist. Meanwhile, all the time that Hiranyakashipu was roaring like this and making his challenge, Prahlad was seeing Lord Nrsingadev peering out of the column just to encourage him. This is bhakti, reciprocation. Even amidst the most, what we would consider, terrifying circumstances, still the Lord is so tender with his devotee. He's peering out, letting Prahlad know, don't fear your father's words. I'm ready for action. At the right moment, I'll finish it. Remember on Monday, we discussed how when the demigods, so troubled by Hiranyakashipu's cosmic rule, brought the matter up to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and heard his sound vibration. They didn't see him, but they heard the sound vibration and knew the sound is the same as the sight. And the Supreme Personality of Godhead told them, when Hiranyakashipu torments his extraordinarily devoted son Prahlad, that's when I will finish him. Be patient. In other words, until that moment, there'll be some discomfort caused by this ruthless character. The demigods, remember, took those words upon their head into their heart. They knew, okay, Hiranyakashipu is dead. Just by hearing the words. Never mind that there was some time between the words and the execution of Hiranyakashipu. This is the world of saintly persons. They know that the sound vibration predominates as the major reality. Therefore, they considered Hiranyakashipu is terminated. He's finished. So now you're hearing about the actual moment of that termination, which is a clash between empirical understanding and accepting divine knowledge. You can feel, as I said, the not simply confidence, but arrogance that Hiranyakashipu possessed based on the scope of his senses, the range of his senses. Why was Hiranyakashipu calling Prahlad unfortunate? Was it because Prahlad wasn't doing what he wanted, or was it because Prahlad was siding with the enemy of Hiranyakashipu, who killed his younger brother? Why would Prahlad be unfortunate? Mandabhagya. Hiranyakashipu was thinking, I've got the greatest fortune. I possess the property of the entire universe. Prahlad, you are the son who was designated to inherit all this property. And now, instead of inheriting all these vast properties, you're going to die at my hands. What could be more unfortunate than that? Hiranyakashipu didn't understand. Prahlad was the most fortunate person because of his pure bhakti. Bhakti so pure that the Supreme Lord himself is coming to protect Prahlad. This challenge, if the Lord exists, where is he? We have to answer ourselves. So much about bhakti is bound up with what is beyond the range of ordinary sense perception. Some of it, of course, is within the range of ordinary sense perception. And we get indication from that. But a lot of it is beyond the range of our current sense perception. But we have the legitimate conviction that as our spiritual depth increases, our depth of spiritual sense perception will also increase. Because look where we were when we started our bhakti and look where we are now. In other words, if we're following the process properly, we should be feeling the symptoms of progress. If I'm chanting, first of all, finishing my rounds quantitatively, secondly, striving for quality in the chanting, if I'm reading the books, if I'm engaging in some kind of selfless service to Krishna, associating with devotees who want to make spiritual advancement, if I'm doing all that, it's natural that I'll feel my material appetite decreasing and my spiritual appetite increasing. So our acceptance of things beyond our current range of spiritual sense perception is not unfounded. The example of the unripe and ripe mango. Both are mangoes, but there's a question of time before the unripe becomes ripe. If the unripe mango is positioned properly on the windowsill, for example, in the sun, it'll ripen. Similarly, as unripe mangoes in bhakti, if we position ourselves properly, we'll become ripe. And we can feel that ripening process. After a while, we start noticing I can't live without glorifying Krishna. I can't live without hearing about Krishna. What would I do without prasad? What would I do without kirtan? What would my life be without service to Krishna as my core and association with Krishna's devotees? You start to feel more and more nourished spiritually because your bhakti lata, your creeper of bhakti is growing. And you start to feel detachment from material activities, material association. And you start to feel pleasure as you become more and more closer to contact with the reservoir of pleasure. This process is described by a verse in the 11th canto. Tushti pushti shud apaya. Pleasure, nourishment, and cessation of material desires. Step by step as you advance in bhakti. Otherwise, we need to make some correction. And that happens from time to time. It's like driving a car. Sometimes you go too far this way, too far that way. You have to keep the car centered on the road. So Hiranyakashipu has presented his laboratory challenge, scientific challenge, as pervertedly understood. Not real science, but Hiranyakashipu's version of science, which sometimes you'll see in this day and age. If something cannot be perceived by my senses, then it's not a relevant factor. If something is not a physical reality, then there's no point in even talking about it. Because we know physicality is all that exists. Very religious conviction. Pure faith in matter. Matter can do inconceivable things. It can give rise to consciousness. It can give rise to life. Have faith. Of course, they don't say that, but they're asking for faith. So then we say, give me the process for verifying that matter can do the impossible. You may not accept what Srimad Bhagavatam is saying, probably not, but it does give a process for verifying what it's saying. Now, whether you want to follow the process or not, that's another thing. But there is a process given for refining your sense perception, purifying your consciousness so that you will be able, down the bhakti road, to verify so many extraordinary statements. And pure love of Krishna is an extraordinary reality. So Hiranyakashipu has already decided. We don't see any supreme being. He does notice Prahlad behaving like he sees something. And that really troubles Hiranyakashipu. In other words, what the hell are you looking at? You don't, there's nothing there. What are you pretending to look at? What are you arrogant? Fill in any foul word in the blank. mm. You lost the whole universe. It could have been your property. If you've ever lost anything that's dear to you, some possession, anything, the thought haunts you. So Hiranyakashipu is sure that Prahlad, if you were mature enough to understand, you know you blew it completely. You could have had all my property. Soham Bikat Tamanasya Shira Kayad Dharamite. Gopa Yeta Haristwaja Yaste Sharanam Ipsitam. Because you are speaking so much nonsense, I shall now sever your head from your body. Now let me see your most worshipful God come to protect you. I want to see it. In other words, it's not going to happen. So, Prahlad, your fantasy is revealed. So you can just feel Hiranyakashipu feeling more and more encouraged. This situation is ridiculous. It's atrocious. There's just no doubt about what I should do. There's no doubt about my killing my son. Any impartial person, any rational person will agree. He's speaking such craziness. Of course, we can't imitate Hiranyakashipu's anger. He was the model of lust and anger. Evam Duruktar Mahur Ardayan Rusha Sutta Maha Bhagavatam Mahasuraha Kadgam Pragrihayot Patito Varasanat Stambham Tatada Tibalaswa Mushtina. Being obsessed with anger, Hiranyakashipu, who was very great in bodily strength, thus chastised his exalted devotee son Prahlad with harsh words, cursing him again and again. Hiranyakashipu took up his sword, got up from his royal throne, and with great anger struck his fist against the column. The climatic moment that devotees adore. The striking of the fist against the column brought about the immediate end, the appearance of Lord Nrsingadev, who appeared first as sound. And just the sound alone terrified not only Hiranyakashipu, but even the demigods. Lord Nrsingadev is showing that the sound of the Supreme Lord is non-different from sight of him. We should always remember that in our chanting of Hare Krishna. We always have to remind ourselves how Krishna is the same as his name. What made that sound even more terrifying was that no one could trace out the source of it. Then, to back up the words, to back up the scientific words of his devotee, Lord Nrsingadev appears from the pillar. Yes, I'm everywhere. Why not in a pillar? Prahlad was such a devotee that he could see the Supreme Personality of Godhead everywhere. Wherever he looked, he saw. So to Prahlad, the situation was routine. Yes, he's there in the pillar. Of course. In all circumstances, the Lord's relationship with his devotee remains. The bond remains. There's a very wonderful prayer by Prahlad Maharaj in the fifth canto. Maybe some of you have memorized this verse because it's not so much about Hiranyakashipu, it's about us and our perverted desires to enjoy the material world. Canto 5, chapter 18, text 8. Om Namo Bhagavate Narasimhaya. Namaste Tejase Avir Avir Baba Vraja Naka Vraja Damsta Kamashayan Randaya Chamo Grasa Om Swaha Abhayam Atmani Bhuyasta Om Trom. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Lord Nrsingadev, the source of all power. O my Lord, who possesses nails and teeth just like thunderbolts, kindly vanquish our demon-like desires for fruitive activity in this world. Kindly vanquish our demon-like desires for fruitive activity in this material world. Please appear in our hearts and drive away our ignorance, so that by your mercy we may become fearless in the struggle for existence in this material world. All right, Lord Nrsingadev, you vanquished Hiranyakashipu, but what about Kamashayan, the impressions of karma that push me to entangle myself even more in material activity? Kindly vanquish those desires. You have Vajranaka, Vajra Damstra, the sharp nails and teeth. Use them, please, for our benefit. And how should you do that? Please appear in our hearts and drive away our ignorance, so that by your mercy we may become fearless. Material existence is all about fear. What will the next problem be? What will the next virus be? Will there be a vaccine? Will the vaccine cause problems? Is there such a thing as immunity to COVID-19? How long? if there is immunity? How long does it last? What's the new normal now? Will we ever feel in control again? Will we ever feel like autonomous enjoyers again? And what about all the people suffering? What about the medical staff on the front lines? And then we forgot about the threat of nuclear weaponry. We forgot about the onslaught of climate change. So many problems. And then there is the economic collapse. Due to the economy shutting down, as the nations of the world struggle to deal with COVID-19. How long will it last? How much will it affect my life? Surveys, polls show that so many persons, young persons born around the turn of the century, are upset. Like, we're entering the prime of our life, and look and see what's happening. Everything's turned upside down. We're entering our 20s. We're in our 20s. We're in our early 30s. It should be our time in the sun. And then look at the state of the world, environmentally, politically, economically, health-wise. It's a fearful place. So what good does it do for us to take shelter of Lord Nrsingadev? That could be the question. This prayer is asking for protection from fearfulness. That's the real problem. Not the circumstances or the packaging. We tend to focus on that, though, the particular circumstances. But actually, the problem is fear. Fear for our bodies, fear for the functioning of our cognitive faculties, fear for our possessions, fear for those near and dear to us. When Krishna has Arjuna declare it in Bhagavad Gita, Kontiya Pratijani Name Bhakta Pranashiti. My devotee will never be vanquished. He obviously doesn't mean that our material bodies will go on and on. He obviously doesn't mean there won't be any old age, no disease, and no death. But he's saying that your spiritual life will be protected. So we pray to Lord Nrsingadev to vanquish our fear. That is much more important than his vanquishing a particular situation, because you stop one material situation, another one comes. Stop one virus, another virus comes. Stop one weapon, another military weapon comes. But we need protection from fear. And for that you can access Lord Nrsingadev. So that we become fearless in the struggle for existence. Then we can help others. How can we effectively help others if we're affected by fear? Oh, what will happen now? By taking shelter of Lord Nrsingadev, what is considered to be normal fear and anxiety can be transcended by the devotee who engages in devotional service. So this prayer is very important. It's honest. It's dealing with what's in our own heart. Kindly clean up our heart. Because what is troubling the heart? As Srila Prabhupada points out in the purport, every living being within this material world has a strong desire to enjoy material nature, to enjoy matter to his fullest satisfaction. These days, that sounds like an innocent statement. But what are the ramifications of that perverted desire? For this purpose, the conditioned soul must accept one body after another, and thus his strongly fixed fruitive desires continue. There are consequences. Every action has a reaction. So our problem is the strong desire to enjoy matter to our fullest satisfaction. And we're never satisfied, therefore we're always frustrated. A woeful situation. Hiranyakashipu represents the personification of material desire. The purport points out that he was the perfect representative of materialistic life. So we, as I said before, should see a bit of ourselves in Hiranyakashipu. Our potency is tiny compared to his. Yet we could be very determined to indulge as he did. A devotee is always concerned what's going on in the heart. We want our hearts to be suitable places for chanting Hare Krishna. And when we've got hard spots in our heart, for whatever reason, angry at someone, feeling envious, feeling proud, overrun by hankering, then we can't chant Hare Krishna properly. So this cry to Lord Nrsingadev, appear in my mind, burn up the impressions of karma, is very important. If you have any questions, I can see them coming up. I might be able to take one or two. Sometimes I have questions sent in beforehand, but now, as we approach dusk, the actual appearance of Lord Nrsingadev, if I see one or two questions in the comments section, I might answer them. By the way, we will be having an online class Friday at 7 p.m. New Zealand time, New Zealand date. I thought not to do it, but I changed my mind. While we're waiting to see if anyone sends any questions in the comment section, I wanted to remind you of the prayers by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. in his book, Navadvip Bhava Taranga. He's written 5 prayers for receiving the mercy of Lord Nrsingadev. In the first part of our discussion tonight, we've been discussing material desire and Hiranyakashipu as the embodiment of material desire. And Lord Nrsingadev took care of that. But also, Lord Nrsingadev is important for clearing the path to pure love of Radha and Krishna. And this is what Bhaktivinoda Thakur points out. His 5 prayers. Within my sinful heart, the 6 enemies headed by lust perpetually reside, as well as duplicity, the desire for fame, plus sheer cunning. At the lotus feet of Lord Nrsingadev, I hope that he will mercifully purify my heart and give me the desire to serve Lord Krishna. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is putting himself in the role of a conditioned soul to help us. Number 2, weeping, I will beg at the lotus feet of Lord Nrsinga for the benediction of worshiping Radha and Krishna in Navadvip, perfectly safe and free from all difficulties. When will this Lord Hari, whose terrible form strikes fear into fear itself, ever become pleased and show me his mercy? So just think about that. Begging at the lotus feet of Lord Nrsinga for the benediction of worshiping Radha and Krishna in Navadvip. Number 3, even though Lord Nrsinga is terrifying toward the sinful souls, he offers great auspiciousness unto the devotees of Lord Nrsinga, of Lord Krishna, headed by Prahlad Maharaj. When will he be pleased to speak words of compassion unto me, a worthless fool, and thereby make me fearless? Fear factor is much bigger than we think ordinarily. Material existence is built on fear. Anxiety and fear are closely related. Number 4, Lord Nrsinga will say, dear child, sit down freely and live happily here in Sri Gauranga Dham. May you nicely worship the divine couple, and may you develop loving attachment for their holy names. By the mercy of my devotees, all obstacles are cast far away. With a purified heart, just perform the worship of Radha and Krishna, for such worship overflows with sweet nectar. Live happily here in Sri Gauranga Dham. Nicely worship the divine couple. Develop loving attachment for their holy names. You see, Lord Nrsingadev does much more than just slay Hiranyakashipu. Number 5, saying this, will that Lord delightedly place his own divine lotus feet upon my head. I will experience sublime love for the divine couple, Radha Krishna, and undergo the ecstatic transformations called sattvic, falling on the ground, I will roll about at the door of Sri Nrsinga's temple. All this from Lord Nrsingadev. The blessing to experience divine love for Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. So please take these points deep into the head and heart. We've dealt with fear. We've dealt with never-ending dissatisfaction in material existence. We've dealt with the futility of material sense perception for certain subject matters. Yes, material sense perception is useful for certain things. But for grasping the biggest questions of existence, our material senses are problematic. And we've dealt with Lord Nrsingadev clearing the path for us to Radha and Krishna, to love of Radha and Krishna, serving them in Navadvip was Bhaktivinoda Thakur's request. In this way, he's showing you the correlation between Gaura Lila and Krishna Lila. Lord Nrsingadev, Laghu Bhagavatamrita tells us, has expansions. He has different forms, different activities. There's Lakshmi Nrsinga in Vaikuntha. Lord Nrsingadev is there in Vaikuntha. He's there on a planet, Janalok, in the material universe. He is one of the, Rupa Goswami says, one of the three paramount forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is Lord Nrsingadev and Lord Ramchandra and Lord Krishna. Each one is successively revealing more opulence. Lord Nrsingadev reveals power. Lord Ramchandra reveals sweetness. But nothing surpasses Krishna in any characteristic. So those three, Rupa Goswami explains, Lord Nrsinga, Lord Ramchandra, and Lord Krishna, are the most revealing appearances of Bhagavan, Supreme Personality of Godhead, in terms of characteristics. But of those three, Krishna is special because only he gives liberation. Nrsingadev doesn't do that. Ramchandra actually doesn't do that. So what was the fate of Hiranyakashipu upon being terminated by Lord Nrsingadev? Why didn't he get liberation? Rupa Goswami explains that Hiranyakashipu just perceived Nrsingadev to be some kind of ordinary being empowered by pious activities. He had no cognition that this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, when he was slayed, his next birth was one of opulence more than what the demigods had. He was not liberated because he didn't understand in the slightest anything about Lord Nrsingadev. But he, as Ravana, had untold material opulence, even more than what he had as Hiranyakashipu. So then, as you know, Ravana was killed by Ramchandra. Why didn't Ravana get liberation? He's killed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Rupa Goswami's point is only Krishna gives liberation by terminating it. When Ravana was felled by the arrow from Ramchandra, his consciousness was not much different from Hiranyakashipu's consciousness. Who is this Ramchandra? He's a powerful, ordinary being, and he's got a beautiful wife, that Sita. Ravana was so overwhelmed by lust for Sita that he had no consciousness of who he's dealing with in terms of Ramchandra. So the next birth was where the liberation action happens. Ravana, who was Hiranyakashipu before, now takes birth as Shishupal. And even before Shishupal could talk properly, he was blaspheming Krishna. In other words, he was chanting Krishna's names in such a condemning and defaming way. So that chanting of the names, although done with such utter hostility, embedded Krishna personally deep into his consciousness, although that embedding process was done by enmity and hate. In other words, Shishupal knew exactly what he was hating. I'm not hating any ordinary being empowered by good karma. I'm hating Krishna. I'm spitting out his names in contempt. I'm mesmerized by his form, the beauty of his form. I recognize it and I hate it. So all that background was there when Shishupal attended the Rajasuya Yagya, where he met his end. You recall how Krishna sent his Sudarshan chakra. By the illumination of the Sudarshan chakra, Shishupal was able to see, by that spiritual illumination, exactly who he's dealing with. And therefore, upon his death, he attained liberation. At a technical point, he passed through that stage of liberation and regained his place in Vaikuntha as gatekeeper. But what we want to focus on here is how Shishupal had specific personal hatred for Krishna, what Hiranyakashipu and Ravana didn't have, Shishupal had, because of his chanting, because of his visualization of the form of Krishna. Because of all that, Krishna had actually embedded himself in the consciousness of Shishupal. So this is how these are the various phases of development from Hiranyakashipu to Ravana to Shishupal to liberation. So we look forward to seeing you Friday at 7 p.m. New Zealand time. One more verse glorifying Lord Nrsingadev. Ugram Viram Mahavishnu Dwalantam Sarvatomukam Sringam Vishanam Bhadram Mityur Namamyam. We offer our obeisances to Lord Nrsingadev, who is so fierce, heroic, of the quality of Vishnu, who is shining like fire and who faces all directions. He looks in all directions simultaneously. He's terrifying and he's auspicious. And he's the death of death. Lord Nrsingadev ki jai. Prahlad Nrsinga ki jai. Lakshmi Nrsinga ki jai.